Chapter 7 Mind Over Manner, January the 5th, 1995. I decided to return, concluding that all measurements of time and distance seemed halved in the strange world. 1 day equaled 12 Earth hours. The distance between here and the coast were halved. Measuring time adjusted accordingly, but distance did not, making 1 Earth mile the equivalent of 2 strange miles. Interestingly enough, to simplify matters, a year contained 730 strange days, 365 Earth days. This was divided between the months to around 60 days each. Nick entered the strange world in the normal fashion and caught up with King in the grassy field further in the woodlands. It would have been the least likely place he expected to find him, but King was not at home, and Doggy had not seen him since the morning. The evening air was still. The moon gave little light to reflect on King standing with his back turned, admiring the wall of the Wiltern Mountain. "It's peaceful," King stated, as if he could hear Nick's presence without turning around to face him. Nick kept enough distance as King spoke further. "You ever wonder what lies beyond this mountain? It's like the towering cliffs. So many stories surround this place. Those that have ventured and returned from these peaks have really put their life on the line. Many expeditions over this mountain and the cliffs led to many deaths, so you can imagine the survivors were reluctant to speak of what they had seen. I want a truthful answer from you, King. What should happen if I die here? That is a possibility," questioned Nick. "Not one I haven't thought of. So tell me, did you read my message in your world?" "No, it was blank. I didn't assume any different," Nick replied. "Now I really must know the dangers I'm in," he reverted back. "You know you're not the only soul from your land to have come here, just the only known soul to make the complete transition. We observed more and more books of foreign writing, maps of every sort left here by chance. They could not be handled, much in the same way that I could not feel your touch, and sometimes these writings would completely disappear on their own. I imagine now it was because your book was shut again. That was many, many years ago, but I suspect another world existed even before then. When I tried to prove it, through the books, through other explanations, they'd already been removed from my world, and there was nothing to show for it. Some people before me copied out the maps. They are the only existence of proof before your arrival, although even they were dismissed as fakes. I told Scontatch during the Prickly War era to predict when Doggy was ready to get involved and not stop him. He and his brother are gifted. You are a gift from the world we once were. You have nothing to fear. Keep hold of the book. It is always a way back anytime you feel threatened," concluded King. "I want to go back now. I'm not sure I could find my way back from here. I've never been this far in the woods." King led Nick away from the field and through the forest of the damned. Nick wondered why King had said so much. It was funny. Nick learned a great deal, but King felt more distant than ever. Scontatch stood by the pasture of thunder and lightning when he spotted King and Nick. "That's another prisoner released where they have no idea what happened to him. Thanks, Scontatch. It is odd, I must admit. We are dealing with the lowest of the low. I would like extending my concerns so long as they stay off our streets. It wouldn't surprise me if their family did not wish to have them back after all the upset," King answered, walking towards his home before turning to face Nick. "Could you return in 2 days' time, Nick? I think it would be best. Clouds cover the moon, darkness fell over the strange world. Nick closed the book, but will return in 2 days. January the 7th, 1995. The door to King's cottage opened as Nick was permitted entry. He walked through the hallway and into the familiar library made into sitting space by various couches. Doggy, Dog, and Scontatch already sat down. Nick was under the impression they had all met up for a reason. All was quiet until King stepped into the room. "Thank you for attending, Nick. I'm glad you could make it this morning. Take a seat. I don't want to make this an official meeting. That is why it is held here and not the church, where I can better trust the strange saviors. I've made a timeline of every first sighting of the strange leader, but more specifically, when the trouble really started, and I keep getting one date of the year." "Wait, you think there's a pattern?" Doggy questioned. "Precisely. And Templeton reigned from 7th of January, 1991, for 1 year. We were fighting Ooze on the 7th of January, 1993, for 1 year. Baby Bouncer, the following year, on the 7th of January. Of course, that's where it stops, King. We destroyed Baby Bouncer in 5 months, and we were fighting off another leader for the remainder of the year," Doggy added. "I realize that. So let's just say that ruined the big bad boss's plan, and he could produce a leader just to stir things up. It may not have been convenient, but it was an attempt to bring us down, just for revenge's sake. Baby Bouncer died from his own army, and that would really upset one." "Who is this big bad boss you mentioned?" Nick quizzed, thinking a greater of evil would really spell disaster. "It is thought by myself and many others that some being is responsible for these strange leaders that keep appearing. The point is, if we can foresee the strange leaders before they ring, it would be a huge advantage to us, King noted. So today may be the day. Should we not be better prepared? Dog responded. Thank you for your enthusiasm, Dog. Let's just keep this between ourselves and keep on the lookout for trouble, King finished. They all left the house, perhaps a little on edge of the disaster they could be in for. Doggy thought that King had a point. However, it did have some broken chains in the timeline, and if King wanted to prove his theory, he would have to have more than just a suspicion. The hours passed, and as much as King wanted to be proven wrong, he could not ignore the coincidences. I can smell fire, King. About 5 miles from here, Scontech exclaimed. It gathered he was quite a spy, and had a nose for trouble. It was not long before sirens accompanied the suspected fire. Let's head to town. There will be an explanation for this, King announced. What was found at the town of Ladnitor was both devastating and unthinkable. The little grocery store Doggy and Dog were often sent to was on fire. Further evidence of destruction was clearly visible. Telephone poles were damaged, windows were smashed. It was far more than mischievous behavior. There was mass panic, and it did appear a very deliberate attack on a town that spawned the great saviors of their time. Nick slipped out of the way and closed the book. Later, back at Doggy's house, 8:30 p.m. Mrs. Brown was sat down with Doggy at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and raising hell. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, but these attacks aren't random, are they, Doggy? Earlier on the streets, I had to support a little girl pulled out from a burning building. What if that had been either of you? An older boy crept up into the room. Doggy instantly recognized him as a friend of the little family. His mom introduced him at the holidays last year. They'd become good friends themselves, and Doggy thought he may have seen him years before, but did not know where. Mom, I was just going out for a while, the boy said. What did you say, Tom? Doggy interrupted. I have one brother. Mom, if you're going to replace us, this is not going to work. Feeling unable to speak, Doggy left his house. He was overwhelmed with emotion and had to escape. Doggy caught up with King, who was outside his cottage doing a bit of gardening. King waved him over to where he was working, but saw the plain, sad look on his friend's face. Doggy, what's the matter? I can't continue like this, giving up my time. It's upset too many people. To make matters worse, Mom's replaced Dog and I with some friend of theirs, stated Doggy. King stood up to give Doggy his full attention. He's here? Is he not in boarding school? King had a look of danger and spoke as if it were nearby. Yes, he's staying with us for a while. How come you know so much about him? Doggy quizzed. That doesn't matter, but he is in danger. We are dealing with Eric Vacci. You have to tell your mother. Why do I feel you're holding something back from me? Just do as I say, Doggy. This is important. I will tell him. He has been a friend to me. But as for any more saving the world, I'm not sure I want to be part of it. Doggy walked away, feeling hurt, confused, and bitter. He wanted to protect his family and would do anything to defend them, but felt lately he had drawn dangerous attention just by saving the day. January 16th, 1995. Tom was all packed and ready for the coach to take him across state to Hatues Atakada. It was particularly cold, and the winter snow made it almost impossible to leave, but the ground was just passable along the eastern route. Bye, Tom, Dog murmured before returning to his crossword. It was good having you around. I hope it won't be as long before we see you again, Doggy said, passing him his last luggage for the coach. For an instant, Doggy felt an electric sensation pass right through him, as if it came from Tom himself. The savior stood silent and dumbfounded. Be careful, Tom. The ground is treacherous. We shall miss you all. Tom hugged the woman, and Doggy could see friendship between his mother and Tom stronger than he had ever previously witnessed. January 25th, 1995. The following week, King had a meeting at the underground church. He called it rather suddenly that afternoon, but many were anxious to attend, and so did. The usual crowd came in, including all the strange saviors. Ian took his seat looking less than happy, as his people were outnumbered considerably. I thank you for all attending on this short notice. Most of you are aware of the fifth strange leader to have come from this. Some may be more than others. His name is Eric Vacci. As King addressed the crowds, they began talking amongst themselves in a quiet tone of concern. Ian McKenna spoke up. We are wondering how it is Eric Vacci has been determined as the next strange leader. He has not long since come out of prison. That's correct. He was released 2 weeks ago. In 2 weeks, he has built an army. You may recall the Daily Strange that ran the story on the missing prisoners. I believe they've all joined his army, King answered. Do you mean he is here? He was imprisoned over in Lagutrop, high-security prison some 2,000 miles from here. Maybe I'm being cynical here, but it doesn't sound right that he bypassed all this and made it here especially as he has no funds, Ian questioned. Well, that is all true, King said reluctantly, and in those few words the crowds were really talking. His father's place was all boarded up. I can assure you we did all we can to destroy any bad feeling. He had no funds when he started his prison sentence 9 years ago. So he has started his own hair-cutting business behind bars and raised enough money for a flight ticket, Ian joked. King could see the sniggering faces of Ian's people at that remark. It must have hurt an Ozira to have created this evil man. It did, like it would us all, but at no point did they cover up. We have known for a long time evil does exist, and for that reason we have set up facilities like Max Time Prison, Lagutrop, or the converted prison, the Farfar place, closer to home in Cessnacra. Vachi's father was a well-established landowner, and had a second home in Wenaukeaksim, unbeknownst to us. His father died in September 94 and left him a will 5 days before. It stated Eric Vachi was the rightful owner of the second home along with 300 Egnarts. The talking was replaced with a more fearful tone as a 9-foot baby entered the room from one of the side doors. Do not be alarmed, this is Baby Bouncer. I've gone through all the tests when I found him last week and can do no harm. Not any more, stated King, in an effort to settle the fearful eyes as they looked on, watching Baby Bouncer take a seat with Ann Templeton and Ooze. This is outrageous! Are you just going to bring in every past strange leader in here? And what happens when one of them turns on us? Ian expressed in anger. King knew it was a controversial choice amongst many of his own people. We have to accept that once defeated, these leaders of once great threat bring no harm any longer. It is hard to imagine, I know, but if there were any risks, they wouldn't be here. I have waited for the day I can bring all the bad that once was together as they accept their new life of peace and innocence. There was a burst of cheer as the good people spurred on King's great speech that spoke of hope and a possible future that had not been seen in their time. So what is the next step, King? What is the real plan of action now we know Eric Vachi is the next strange leader? Ian mocked. We act, of course. It would be foolish to leave this any longer. He'll be waiting in his home in Wenaukeaksim. He doesn't know we are aware of it, so together with Doggy, Dog, Nick, and Scontach, I propose we start the battle before the battle starts on us. As if free from their chains, 2 more people walked over to King's supporting benches at the end of the meeting. King looked over at Doggy and could see there had been a change in him, and he knew all too well what it was about.